Please be seated. There are some seats here in the front so that you can see. In the previous 4 or 5 years, as you remember, we introduced, instead of a second Bible study, some sort of a lecture introducing some basic issues that would be a good thing to know in terms of history and literature. Along these lines, today we are going to have a presentation on church architecture. In essence, what we would do is to have a quick, a bird's eye look at the development of the basic place of worship, which is a church building, a temple. So we will start from the beginning. It would be, as I said, some species, some indicative items. It's not a full history, it's impossible, but some characteristic. Okay. At the beginning, as you know, we have the community, the church community in Jerusalem. The first place where also we have the institution of the Eucharist was the Last Supper. In the Last Supper, in the upper floor of a small house in Jerusalem, with the Lord himself and the 12 apostles, we had the first meeting or gathering of a liturgical type. After the crucifixion and the resurrection, the initial community used to go to the Temple of Solomon and somehow be in the worship of the temple there, having, however, meetings in one of the houses to celebrate the Eucharist. Then we have Pentecost, and we have the spreading of the new faith, originally in Judea, then see what today is Syria, Lebanon, Asia Minor, Greece, and then you go to the west, to Rome. And we have this already in the 1st century. By the end of the 1st century, the worship is happening in a house of one of the members of the local church, as we know from Corinth, Thessaloniki, etc. And this is a way we go to middle of the 2nd century, where we have in the works of Justin Martyr, written around 150 AD after Christ, we have a description of the original setting of a Sunday liturgy. So he says, on the Kyriaki Mera, on Sunday, we gather, obviously in one of the prominent houses in terms of space, and we read from the book of Psalms, we read from the Old Testament, we read from the memoirs of the apostles. This is the way he uses to describe the Gospels and the Epistles. And then Oproestos, the leader of the worship, which will be either a bishop or a presbyter, offers some words of explanation of the texts that were read. We continue this kind of situation until the beginning of the 4th century, because in the meantime we have the persecutions. The first real places of worship outside of individual houses were the catacombs, and we have some outstanding examples from Rome. Now, in Rome, we have a famous catacomb of St. Callistus, and this is some sort of a construction in which you see there are long corridors and there are tombs on the two sides of this corridor. In some instances it's a rectangular opening, but sometimes above it it's a round kind of arch, and they are called arcosolia. And there the initial Christians had their liturgy, feeling that they did that in the presence of martyrs and departed saints. This catacomb of St. Callistus, and we have a next, and you can see there are some just original elementary kind of paintings in the walls of the catacomb, as well as inscriptions. And this is another catacomb of St. Sebastian. St. Callistus catacomb was 5 stories below ground. We have a liturgy once there. It was an amazing kind of experience because there are thousands of tombs there. At the same time, and this is another catacomb which is in the island of Milos in Greece. It's one of the unique, this type of catacomb, which is a subterranean cemetery. Normal, a place also of worship. Now, what happened to the rest of the country? The Christians used to perform, to celebrate liturgy on the tomb of a martyr in the cemetery. A thing which then continues the tradition. This is why today, in any church that we build, we have under the holy altar relics of martyrs. Is in continuation of this original setting that the Eucharistic meeting of the community will be in an area where martyrs were buried. Now this continues up to the year 313. Okay, let's see also some. This is one of the inscriptions that are in the tombs, in the marble plaques that were on closing the tombs, and you can see the characteristic symbol of here is, you see, this is an anchor, typical symbol of early Christianity. The 2 fish, ichthys, being a symbol of Christ, and here is some remnant of an inscription in Greek letters, omega, taf, etc. This is also from the original time. This is a mosaic. Again, fish, as you can see, is a very typical thing. But look, these are the precursors of what we call prosopon today, used in the Eucharist. We extract the center to be the body of Christ in the Eucharist. So you can see the basket offering the bread to become the body of Christ, and the fish symbolizing. And this is a mosaic, a primitive type of mosaic art. We have a number of things like that in some of the original churches of the time. Some other symbols that we found in this original kind of situation: the hero, Christos, Alpha, Omega, the beginning and the end, the typical kind of language from the book of Revelation. You have again the bird. The bird normally is a peacock, which is a symbol of immortality in the ancient world, and also you have some other elements here as a symbol. But the peacock is something which we encounter very often. Do you have anything else? Okay. So then, in the year 3313, and exactly in the month of February, and we are in the year 2013, we are exactly 1700 years to the day, to the month. We have the edict of Saint Constantine and his co-emperor Licinius in Rome, by which freedom of worship is given to any citizen or resident of the Roman Empire. That gives the opportunity for the church now to get out of the catacombs, leave the cemeteries as places of worship, and start building churches. Sometimes they might originally have used existing buildings. This is a rotunda in Thessaloniki, which is from the Roman time. Before, it was some sort of a mausoleum for a famous person buried there. Then it became a church by the Christian community dedicated to St. George. And when the Turks occupied Greece and Constantinople, they have also, you see, they have a minaret there. So it became a place. Today is again a church. The minaret stays there, but it's also a museum. They don't use it for a permanent worship. This is in the downside. You can see the shape of a rotunda. What they did, they added this part for the Holy Order, and this kind of part for the entrance of the church. It's interesting. It was not originally built to be a church, as I said, but it has the advantage that offers a very significant central area for the people that can see to the Holy Order. We have the first basilicas, which is the first built churches, and these are from the place of Philippi in Greece, north of Kavala. Philippi was the first place on European soil when St. Paul visited, and there, in this place, it was the first European Christian by the name of Lydia. So you have the church of St. Lydia. Now, the church at that time is following a kind of shape and structure that is in imitation of the so-called basilica. Basilica was a place of meeting in the ancient world. It was a place they conducted business, they conducted meetings, community meetings, etc. So the first Christians just imitated this kind of shape, and they created the so-called basilica type of church. You can see here a view from above. It's normally an oblong kind of building, and it has normally again two rows of columns, one and two, and the Holy Order is there. If you visit Greece, you visit northern Greece, this archaeological site is a big one, plenty of things. You are walking really in the ruins of a full city, and you can see the remnants of this original basilica. You can see here the columns remaining, and they belong to this kind of long central space with two on the two sides, separated by the open column. Now here we have another kind of church. This is St. Apollinarius in Italy. You see the basilica, the central open space, the colonnade, and the roof is normally either flat or here is elevated, as you can see that, creating a little bit more kind of delicate kind of shape. It's not a flat, square kind of building. And you can see here that the churches started to have additional items here used for confession, for other services of the church. And normally in this type of church, on this side, this is the so-called prothesis, prepare the holy gifts, and this is the so-called diaconicon, when you keep the vestments of the priest. Next to the Holy Order is a typical formation. This is another of the ancient basilicas. They are Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome. They originated 4th, 5th century, basically. Again, much more elaborate thing. Now they have, if you go there, you look at the ceiling, it's very elaborate, very beautiful, sometimes decorated with paintings and other things. This is the outside. You see the outside is simple. Not dome yet in this type of way. And you see the tremendous length. Today, if you visit the place, it doesn't show here. Here they have created on this side. There are 8 or 10 small rooms, and they are for confession. And outside you read the possible languages that the priest inside can speak, because they serve plenty of pilgrims. This is another typical basilica. This is St. Demetrios in Thessaloniki. The building, as you see it, is an exact rebuilding of the original, which was burned in 1918. It's a huge basilica, and you can see again the long kind of thing, and now we start seeing some side protrusions that will tend to create a cross-like scheme. We will see it in the next. But here, this is, yeah, please. This is, again, a view. Now, St. Demetrios has an additional new element, not a single row of columns, but a second row. So that creates the so-called Pentaklitos Basiliki, a basilica with 5 divisions. Again, the Holy Altar is always on the east, the narthex down, and the additional adjacent buildings. Now, this church of St. Demetrios, can we return to the original? Okay. If you can see from outside, is one basic level down there, but then it has 2 levels of balconies. What happens then is the following. The main church down there, return to the other, this area here could take 7,000 people. With the balconies, the number becomes 14,000. It's a huge thing, it's a beautiful thing. But you see, this is the basilica that, and all the people here have a very good side. And you see, we started already creating the cross-like, because with this type of section here that starts protruding. Next, we see, of course, Hagia Sophia, without the minarets. Hagia Sophia was built in the beginning of the 6th century, 510-15, under Emperor Justinian. It's a masterpiece of architecture. That's another beautiful view. Now, why is a masterpiece of architecture? Because they created this big, huge dome. If you are there, you have been there, I'm sure most of you. You can see how they could do that without having directly underneath the columns supporting. They managed to transfer the weight from one level to the next level and disappear the side. So the inside, Archdeacon, looks like that. You have this huge kind of thing here. I think this is a cut, a vertical cut. And you can see the same thing here, how complicated it is to go from this kind of situation that are supporting the dome down to these supporting elements. You see, you don't have any columns here. Now, Constantinople has been many times visited by earthquakes. Big buildings fall down, not Hagia Sophia, not the dome. It's an amazing architectural achievement. How these people in the 6th century, the 2 basic architects, were able, without having computers for logistics, to create this kind of thing is a miracle. We have been there many times, but it was always a situation with scaffolding which prevented a review. But 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because Constantinople was declared the capital, cultural capital Europe. They eliminated the scaffolding, and we have this kind of thing, which is huge. The space is amazing. And of course, it's famous not only for the architecture, but the mosaic. This is a famous mosaic of Christ, and it's in a part of a triptych. It's the Mother of God is this side, and St. John the Baptist that side. Now, what happened, you can see here, the parts of the mosaic are missing because the people used to visit and take something as a blessing until the government then decided that what's going on here, and they blocked the icon, so there is no possibility to take anything. So yeah, that's, and from the same church you have this kind of beautiful kind of icon. So you have a development of a superb architecture with a continuous developing of iconography, especially in the art of mosaics. In the next picture, we have now, after Hagia Sophia, we start having a development of an architecture which is called Byzantine, and which is characteristic by having the dome, and clearly now you go to a cross-like shape. See, if you have a view from above, you can see that it's clearly a cross-like. Now, what do we have here in this development? The dome is not simply a half a sphere sitting as it is with Hagia Sophia. You have a drum-shaped kind of elevation, like a cylinder, on top of which is a curved surface depending on the kind of the church and what the local architect. They pay attention now to the exterior by using elaborate schemes with bricks and marble and other things, and also they are very particular with the windows. There is always an effort of decorative items, so they break the somehow massive appearance of the church, they make it much more elegant and much more light. In Constantinople, we have the church of Hagia Irene. It's close to St. Sophia. It's a church which was not transformed into a mosque. Why? The reason is very unusual. Because it was used by the Turks when they conquered Constantinople as a place to store weapons. And they thought, if a place has been used for storing weapons, somehow cannot become a holy place again. It's interesting because this is the place of the Second Ecumenical Council in the year 381. Today is an empty church, absolutely important and beautiful for concerts and artistic events. What you see here is our youth choir in Constantinople celebrating the 20 years of the Ecumenical Patriarch as Patriarch. And it was here that these young children, chanted Ti per Macho, and the people were crying. That was next to Hagia Sophia in the center of Constantinople. It's a wonderful kind of experience. Now we go in more and more elaborate forms of Byzantine architecture. You can see now here that you have the appearance of additional smaller kind of domes. And also you can see now the very art of using simple bricks of different color to give again something much more pleasant to the eye. Of course, transform it into a zami here. Now, this what we saw is the church of the monastery known as Monitis Horas. In the Turkish contemporary description is called Kahriye Cami. Now, this is famous for the internal iconography, mostly mosaics. It's perhaps the best place for really exquisite mosaics. Look, here is a Mother of God with Christ, and these are figures of saints and prophets around it, so on, in one of the domes that we saw from outside. The next is a beautiful icon of the resurrection, Christ, after the crucifixion, coming down to Hades and liberating Adam, Eve, and prophets and kings of the Old Testament. And that's a detail. I mean, you can see how beautiful these people work with the mosaics. Look how expressive is his face. The eyes, some face that is the face of the Mother of God, has some sort of sadness, but at the same time very peaceful, very alert. It's a beautiful thing. We thought of just seeing this detail because it's from the same place. We further develop as years go on. This is St. Mark in Venice. Again, is a sort of a basic basilica, but you see again now you have the elaboration with additional domes. And the domes, you see, it's a different kind of thing. You have the drum, but now the curve element is more elaborate, and is accompanied by other as well. Now here you see from above the same church, and you can see now a clear cross shape inside the church. Again, the main part, what happened here is the left, the right and the left, they were used for the two choirs, the holy altar, and of course plenty of things around here to be used for various cases. This is the inside, with this huge cross hanging. Now in the initial years, even up to 6th century, you don't have, in what we have today, the platitera above the holy altar. It was not the platitera, which is the Mother of God holding Christ. It was just a simple cross. If you go to Thessaloniki, to the Basilica of Hierophilius, a huge basilica, you see that above the holy altar is just a simple cross inscribed on a blue kind of background. This is a church, Panagia Kapnikarea, very close to Syntagma Square in Athens. This is a university church of the University of Athens. Typical Byzantine church of 10th, 11th century. Very elongated upwards dome. Now you can see it almost becomes a cylinder with a little bit of curve, and very detailed kind of structure. This is the design. It's very complicated for a small church. Other specimens, this is from Castoria, other specimens, and you can see again the cross-like element with a little bit of a dome there, and this reminds of the old basilicas, but the addition, and the same thing the one brought in. That's another specimen again of the same kind of architecture. This is the site of the holy altar. You can see again. And no, you can go to the, okay. This is the Panagia Chalkeon in Thessaloniki. It's called Panagia Chalkeon because in this street there were shops selling bronze and copper items. Chalkos, bronze. So it was Panagia Chalkeon because now today you see the high-rising kind of buildings around it. It's a very elaborate, and if you look at it, but it's very small. If you visit the place, and you can see how small it is, because you have a central door here, and this space from here to here, just like a big room, a little bit more. But you see in a small item like that, the tremendous effort by the architect and other people involved here, the builders, to create something very pleasant architecturally with, as you see, not only one, but a double kind of dome, almost no curve up there, but always the elevation of the drum-like thing. This is a small church. If you visit Athens and you are in the Acropolis, and just over there is the restored Athenian Agora, restored by the American School of Classical Studies in Athens. They restored the original basilica, which was from the time of Pericles, and so this is the Church of the Holy Apostles, a 12th century Byzantine church. Again, you can see the elaborate kind of the people that work on the roof up there. And sometimes it's indicative that if you go to, we don't have the opportunity to do that, but if you were able to go up there and you see, they take care of the details here. These are aspects, places no one could see. But the people, the builders, they make sure that that will be a perfect thing up there. No matter if they say God sees that, it has to be perfect. And this is a characteristic you can see. Yes. This is another, again. You see more and more how they go to a more complex kind of constructions. They combine, because they don't want the buildings to be viewed as a cubic constructions, so they use plenty of curve, as you can see. The windows, things, you don't need to have the windows that way, but you see here, for instance, the window is curved around, again there's the same thing there. Again the windows are there always, and they break the monotony of straight lines and vertical projection. It's indicative of the genius and the inventiveness of the people. And against the very beautiful blue skies, these kind of things are just very impressive. This is a small church, I'm sure that you know, it's next to the Cathedral of Athens. It's called St. Eleftherios or Mikri Mitropoli, small cathedral, next to the Cathedral of Athens. This has been considered, again, a very important kind of building of Byzantine architecture in the small size. I remember that the Polytechnic School of Athens, they considered this type of church as something of a model indicative of the art of the Byzantine church building. One characteristic, if you look here, look at the distance from the door to the end, from the door to the end. They are uneven. They are not even. You don't notice it, but they are not even if you look carefully. Now, some people say, well, mistake of the architect and the builders. No, it's purposely done. It's just, they didn't want to create something that would be so correct geometrically that would just hurt the eye. I mean, sometimes there are these kind of things. Artists never are predictable. And this is now the Cathedral of Athens, and you can see the Cathedral of Athens, and next is this church we saw. Now, no, go back please. The Cathedral of Athens is something that was built at sometimes at the end of the 19th century, 1800 something, and it follows a typical way. In essence, is a sort of a basilica with no elaborate dome, but always with these two bell towers that are typical in the front. A much more recent building, included in this presentation, next further is St. Andrew in Patras. This was built after the return of the holy relics of St. Andrew in 1964. And it was built, and you see now he's a new kind of appearance. What kind of rhythm architecturally is this? It's very difficult to describe. Some people say Neo-Byzantine. You could give it any name. The thing is, you have the maintaining now, the drum becomes very prevailing, and the dome now takes much more height. Whereas in Hagia Sophia is more flat, as you notice. This is much more, and you have the additional kind of decorative items like that. It's a very, very, very interesting and big church. If I may, I have a personal note here. When the relics of St. Andrew were back there, I was in Athens as an archimandrite and the local metropolitan invited me. I was there, and after reading, it was not yet The church was only the skeleton at that time. But we brought the relics here, and there was a first liturgy in yet unfinished church, and the liturgy was celebrated by someone known in this country and who served here, Metropolitan Ezekiel, who came later, Archbishop Demetrios, and then he was at that time visiting. And because he was from Patras, and I served with him in the first liturgy there. Next, now this is another specimen of modern church. Again, that's something different from what we have seen. You see, there is no end in doing things with architecture. Here is interesting that the back, this is a holy altar. The back has this developed kind of presentation. It's a very interesting thing. And this is the church. The inside of the church we saw before is Holy Trinity in Taksim, Constantinople. That's the inside. And you can see now how the inside of the church also becomes very, very elaborate and ornamental. This is the pulpit, and you see the columns, everything was decorated everywhere. We don't have the simplicity of the original basilicas. Here you have much more externally and internally. The next is this famous Panagia Vlacherna. The Panagia Vlachernon in Constantinople, according to the old tradition, this was a famous, they have a famous holy water kind of fountain. And this was a place where, according to the tradition, the hymn Ti Permacho was first chanted. And in fact, above this kind of fountain here, this is the text of Ti Permacho, Stratigota, Nicitilia, etc., the hymn in its totality. It's one of the historic monuments, but can you return to the external of the church? Yeah. See here, this is a very unusual kind of construction. It's an uneven situation with the parts. But obviously the architects, as time went by, they felt free to exercise their own sacred imagination and do some unusual kind of constructions in terms of pure architecture. Now we go to our own St. George Church in Fanar, inside the Patriarch. And in fact, the Patriarch is there. It's after the liturgy. This is a building of the time of the Turkish occupation, in other words, after 1545, and it just looks like an ordinary building. You could take it as a church. The only thing is that it's kind of elevation there, but other than that, we have buildings like that in Turkey. So it was that the Turks imposed, when they conquered Constantinople, imposed on the Christians not to build churches that will be big or attract attention. That's why this is a period when, both in Greece and Asia Minor, you have churches that are small and simple. However, and there are plenty of books written about that, you can see among them, in these 400 years, some, again, architectural gems. But now we didn't have time to show much of it. This is one photo from the inside. In the liturgy, you have the Patriarch sitting there with the metropolitans participating in the people. Now, this is a very touching aspect because here is the Patriarch, of course. These are the relics of St. John Chrysostom and St. Gregory the Theologian, brought back to Rome a few years ago. And this is the Patriarch's throne. We brought them back, and as soon as we came from the airplane here, we placed the two here because both St. John Chrysostom and St. Gregory were archbishops of Constantinople. And on just a few days ago, when we celebrated the return of the relics, on that day the Patriarch is sitting there, and on the throne is it's this multicolor thing. It's very, very picturesque, very impressive. And you see the tremendous variety of colors used. Now, this is now the paradoxical thing. This is the view of the church, the same church from above. What is impressive here is that where is the space for the people? Very limited. The people here don't see anything from the Holy Altar. Plenty of walls and other things here. There is no space that the original basilica offered, or St. Sophia's space. The whole thing is occupied by walls and these kind of things. When you are there, you think that this is a small church inside, because what you see around you is a small space. We have been there, we have been in the liturgy. But as I said, the domes are very impressive. Then you have, in the west, you have the development of the so-called cathedral. This is Notre Dame in Paris, which actually is a basilica with this kind of bell towers. This is a view from above, and you can see the cross-line basilica. And we have our own national cathedral in Washington, an Episcopalian church. Normally the place where the day after the inauguration of the president, there is a special service here, and also the place where most of the presidents, in my case, I remember the President Reagan, Ford, etc., they had in their funeral. It's a huge church. One of the specimens. And we have also in New York, St. John the Divine. This is St. John the Divine. Has been in the building kind of process for 100 years. I think he is yet unfinished. They need some. It's again the typical cathedral, but here you see the very clear cross-like shape. Just a quick look at some other churches that are from monasteries. These red things are from Mount Athos, and you can see different kind of shapes, either plain brick or with a color, here much more impressive. You can see all sorts of finishing, the top, attention sometimes on the top of the roof, and less of the front, etc. And one more is from a modern church. You can see now the plenty of additional small domes on the top. I mean, you increase the decorative tendency here. Okay. This is St. Paul, Hampstead, New York. Mr. Dion, who is founder of Leadership of Hunter, has been very instrumental in this church. This is a modern kind of thing, but as you see, you have the dome, and you have a very beautiful front, elevated, and this is the inside. And this is a church that is very significant in the sense that the iconography is only mosaics, the whole of the iconography. One or two more additional churches here. This is the church of St. Thomas the Apostle Resurrection in Brookville. It's a new building, 4 years old. And this is the interior. You see the modern kind of thing with the seating and the colors here with the other thing. And this is the very last church that we have been opening its doors last month. It's the Holy Archangels in Port Washington, Long Island, and a beautiful kind of inside the door. Now, in America, we have also, this is Hagia Sophia, St. Sophia, Washington. We have plenty of important churches in our seats of the diocese, our metropolises. We have in Boston, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Atlanta, New Jersey, Denver. In Denver we have a very interesting church. The dome is the building. It sits on the ground. You don't have, so to say, walls. So there are, in our architecture in America, Orthodox architecture, we have plenty of very innovative kind of attempts at church architecture. One of the most kind of unusual things, as you know, is in Wisconsin. We have this mushroom-like church by one of the famous American architects, right? And so in America, one could have the experience of small, cubic-style churches. In the recent years, more and more of the Byzantine-like churches, of combination of modern and Byzantine. It's really, you can have a constellation of church styles if you go in our 540 parishes all over the country. And then we come to St. Nicholas Ground Zero. St. Nicholas Ground Zero, this is the way it looked, having in the background the big buildings, and it was sitting on a parking lot. Now, for you to have the real impression in terms of geography, this is Cedar Street. And this on back is Liberty Street. Ground Zero is this kind of thing. One side ends at Liberty Street. The rest of the block of St. Nicholas was parking lot. Now, how come that St. Nicholas was in the block next to the original? How come that it was destroyed? When the buildings, one of the two twin towers, fall, because the distance is small, it came down on top of St. Nicholas. Now, this is the interior. It was a small church, St. Nicholas. As you can see here, originally was a inn, I-N-N, bought by our immigrants in 1892, used as a community center. Then, in 1916, after almost 20 years, they said, now wait a moment, let's have the first floor, make it a church, and have the other floors as meeting places and offices or whatever. And that was the case. The footage was limited, 900 square feet. It was a small thing. So here comes September 11, and here is a picture. You can see a first picture after the first plane hits one of the towers. See, it's one rare photograph taken from the front of the church and looking at the back, and you can see already the smoke up there of the two buildings. In the next picture, we have already starting down of the buildings, of the two twin towers, smoke and things like that. Here is now the tower, one of the towers burning, and creating, this is what St. Nicholas was. In essence, most of it was pushed down about 15 feet. And we couldn't find anything but a few items. Now, this is just an indicative collection of a few items, a book, partly burned, an icon broken. How it survived, it's a miracle, because metallic things were just becoming powder. A belt, a small item, and something for holding the candles, a metallic item attached to one of the walls. We have been working since September 11 for the rebuilding of the church, and we met with the Governor Pataki at that time of New York, and we said, Governor, that was our church, we need to have it again. And we need space. Because now we don't want to have a small space like the original church for a parish, but a church that will serve the larger community as a retreat center, as a religious building, very important. And Governor Bataki said, I promise, I commit as a state that we do that. We had 10 years during which it was building, negotiations, this and that. It was quite a long process with the whole of World Trade Center, Ground Zero. The whole thing was a long, long process with delays and cancellations and frustrations and things like that. At some point, the leadership of Port Authority, to which the area belongs technically, decided, the leader of that he wanted no church there. So here we started a big fight. We had to go to the court too, but it was clearly that you own a property that you can take them. So when Governor Cuomo took over, he recommitted the state completely, and just in the month of October of 2011, we reached a point when we signed the
We're signing as witnesses. That is important. It's already been signed by Mr. Ward and Mr. Jaharis. We're signing as witnesses. I say that because if there's any future litigation, we don't want to have anything to do with it.
The second person signing is the chair of the Senate of New York State.
Your Eminence.
That's a historic point. We thought of including it in today's presentation.
Congratulations.
We started at that point. The work is not easy because the church has to be built on a system, above a system of underground network of traffic. Because they didn't want to have traffic on the surface. As you can go to the next because it's not clear here. This is something, it's an imaginary kind of thing, but it renders the reality. The location of the church now is not on the side that we cannot see, it was somewhere there, looking at Cedar Street. It's here on Liberty, and it's exactly across from the memorial, exactly across from the memorial. It's in the most central position. And it's no longer 900 feet, it's 4,200 feet. You have some other picture. Okay. This is now, the original was here. The original side. This is Cedar. Now it's there, this is Liberty. That's another view. Now, well, this is very important. Today, with the whole area not yet finished, there are an average of 18 to 20,000 visitors from all over the world. They count, the people of the Port Authority, because they prepare for all the kind of subway stations, etc. They count on 40 to 50,000 daily visitors. But in this area now, where the church is, around here are exits of subway transportation and other exits. They count on 200,000 people in and out of this underground stations. And they are going to see the church. They think that this is going to be perhaps the most visible place in the world. 60 million people per year. And we thank God, thinking that perhaps there was a Parthenon in the beginning. It was and is Hagia Sophia. This place might be the number 3 in importance for projecting orthodoxy in the world. We have already engaged in what is needed for the work. We invited 12 top architects of this country, and they came with plans, and almost all of them said, in one way or another, we have built bridges, we have built stadiums, we have built hospitals, we have built universities. In fact, some of them they are building at this moment. But if any one of us is given the work, this is going to be the work of our life. I'm very surprised to see some of them with tears in their eyes. They say, goodness, that's something of a dream. I said, pity, we can have all 12 of them. That's a big problem. We are going to have one. But it's indicative. So we are in a process now of being the submitted plans. They were very precise with the plans. And the church is going to be built on a thick layer of concrete, not on a soft ground, and it will be 9 feet above the level of the street, and the rest of the block is going to be bar. It's an amazing situation. And so there will be no basement. You start immediately with the main thing. There is no soft ground to go to the basement. But it will be that way for reasons of security. If a bomb explodes down in the network of traffic, nothing happens in the church of the people there. So, but this, because of the very special terms of building, is going to be a very expensive project. In other words, for the church to be built there, if it was built in any other place and have a cost count of 5 or 6 times the cost for this place. So I thought of ending this tour of architecture, as I said, the bird's eye look, which is important because it's the place of worship, it's so important, and our communities in this country have been terrific in building churches. And they are terrific in showing that they started with the church. In some instances, they grew, they went to a new location, they said we need more, and then they went even to a third location, we need something more, and they seem to be more and more willing to have the church as a witness of our faith and of our universal Hellenic tradition. Thank you for listening to this.